Hello and welcome back to the Survival Horror Guide, a series where we play and then review survival horror games. We rate them on their fear factor, and we give them an overall score. Finally, we send it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system to see how it stacks up against the rest of the survival horror competition. Today for the show, 10 years in the making, it's finally here, we're playing Amnesia Rebirth. I don't know if I go up.
Oh no.
Hold on. Quick. Frictional Games, the developers behind the huge hit Amnesia: The Dark Descent, have finally made a follow-up game after 10 years. Keeping in mind Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs was developed by a different studio. So there is a lot of hype surrounding this game. The Dark Descent has become an absolute classic in the genre. Currently, as of this recording, it is sitting atop the series' totally arbitrary rating system, the highest of accolades. So of course, the question becomes, does Amnesia Rebirth live up to the first game? The answer to that is complicated. They really went for something different here. This is not The Dark Descent 2, this is Amnesia Rebirth. But if I were to pick one over the other, I'll admit right now, it's The Dark Descent all the way. Amnesia Rebirth starts off with the main character, Tazi Trianon, a French archaeologist waking up from a plane crash in a desert in Algeria with, of course, a case of amnesia. As she explores the surrounding area, she discovers a network of caves and tunnels where the remnants of her companions can be found, and she begins to piece together the events that led up until this point. And it's a lot to take in, not only for Tazi, but for the player. There is a whole lot of mindfuckery in this game's story. And on top of that, Tazi is in possession of an amulet that allows her to open these portals between the real world and a completely separate realm. So there's quite a bit of jumping around, not only between locations and realms, but seemingly through time as well. There's flashback sequences, flash forward sequences. It's like I was playing Season 4 of Lost.
We have to go back!
And as per the game's namesake, we learn fairly early on that Tazi is pregnant. When you start off the game, it's not noticeable, but after a couple portal transitions, and she's got a big old baby bump. It's a key element in the game's story, and they incorporated it into the gameplay as well. You can check and soothe the baby to help reduce your fear levels. And even though it feels like the entire game happens throughout the course of a single day, Tazi goes through her entire pregnancy. The game really messes with the perception of time. Even after finishing the game, I'm still left with questions. Though the story is honestly probably the best part of the game, it feels like this game was made with the narrative as the priority. The Dark Descent, on the other hand, I feel like the story wasn't as much of a focus. It was still there, but it was supplemental to the minute-to-minute gameplay. Scares, tension, puzzles, and a creepy ambience first, and then throw on a creepy backstory as the icing on the cake. Rebirth doesn't do this, and it's the minute-to-minute gameplay that suffers. While yes, the story is better in Rebirth, the presentation's better, you can definitely tell it had a higher budget, but it is slow. And look, I'm down for a slow burn, I don't mind that at all. But just the overall pacing of this game feels off. It feels like a slog. It often feels tedious. I think a lot of that has to do with how some of the tasks and levels are constructed. You need to use this teleporter, you finally solve the puzzle to get it working, but it breaks down and you need to reassemble the pieces to get it working again. You take an elevator, but it breaks down, so you gotta fix it. You need to use a tank to clear a path, but you gotta first make the bullet from scratch. Then when you finally get it to work, you fall through the ground anyways. It takes the wind out of your sails. Like, whenever you think you accomplish something, you don't really accomplish it. It gets tiring, exhausting. Maybe that's the point, but I'd find myself often completing these tasks begrudgingly. I think this is also why I felt the game was too long. It took me about 7 hours to beat, which honestly isn't that long, but I guess because so much of it felt like busy work, it made me feel like the game would have benefited from being a couple hours shorter. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of mixed opinions on the game's setting and overall tone. The Dark Descent took place entirely in Brennenburg Castle, exploring the hallways, the dungeons. The game had such a haunting vibe, this feeling of impending doom. Rebirth never quite hits this feeling, and I'm very surprised at how heavily the game leans into the other dimension that was only briefly touched on in The Dark Descent. You spend a considerable amount of time here, and it just didn't resonate with me. I didn't find it scary. Honestly, I found it aesthetically kind of boring. Other times, you'll find yourself exploring the underground caves and tunnels. These parts were creepier for sure, And holy crap, this game is not generous with the light sources. It is dark as hell. The rate your lantern consumes oil is so punishing, it's insane. There were times where I'd want to just explore the area a bit, but I'd end up rushing just because my fuel was burning, my precious fuel, man. This game is demanding. It demands a lot from the player. The puzzles are not easy, and the lore, the story is deep. I'd say it's maybe even too deep. I was playing with a few of my friends who were spectating, and one of them made an excellent point, that there's so much text and lore, especially in the other dimension, that details their history and so many names and dates and numbers, so much thrown at you, that the real story, what's really pertinent to the game's narrative, gets drowned out, it gets lost in the mix. I'm sure many players will reach the end and not have a clue as to what's going on. Now listen, I've said a lot of negative things, but there is some good stuff here.
Oh my god, that body scared me.
You paused the game.
There are some truly excellent scares. When the game hits, it really hits. Moments where you're being chased and you're hiding, they're super tense and nerve-wracking. I just wish there were more of these moments, because at its best, this game is really good. There's just so much of everything else in between. I really liked Tazzy and a lot of the ideas in the story. There's a lot of good stuff here again, though things get convoluted at points, and it definitely doesn't stick the landing. Once you discover the cause for why everything's happening, it's kind of like, oh, that's it? I suppose we were expecting a bit more of a twist, but overall I'd still say that the story is the best thing this game has going for it. Fans of The Dark Descent will have lots to nerd over here as well. The game isn't just a sequel in name only, there's many callbacks and references to the first game, which are definitely neat. On the fear factor scale, this game is a 7. The game definitely got me multiple times.
Dude! Oh my god.
Oh my goodness, dude.
I just wish there were more scares. In the grand scheme of things, The Dark Descent probably has the same number of scares or close to it, but the difference lies in the game's tone. When there are no immediate threats, Rebirth is not scary. It just doesn't have that same creepy tone and atmosphere as The Dark Descent did. Overall, this game is also a 7. It's good, but it's not setting the world on fire. There's definitely a lot to like, but there's an equal number of things holding the game back. I honestly feel like just a handful of changes could make this game excellent. Now taking it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system, Amnesia Rebirth is gonna slide its way right into the center of the pack. One might be able to argue that it's better than RE3 Remake, but fuck 'em, this is my list, and I had more fun playing Resident Evil 3. If you guys want to check out my full playthrough of Amnesia Rebirth, then you should definitely check out the Let's Play channel for all my horror game playthroughs and all kinds of other random stuff. We've been going crazy hard this month especially, so definitely check it out. Oh shit.
Oh, she's here.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Survival Horror Guide. As always, please let me know what you thought about it, and hit the like button if you did enjoy it. Helps this channel out a lot. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Peace.